What's up, everybody? This is Empty Streets Aaron, and you're watching John the Ninja.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the Dojang, aka the John the Ninja Studios. And you know this, man. Guys, today, I always say I'm excited, but this excitement isn't so much like, oh, it's happening, it's happening. No, this is the nerves in your stomach. You feel the electricity in your spine. I am getting back into my rock roots. I'm not always the biggest punk fan, but you know I got my love for the Misfits and the Adolescents. Hell, I even brought out that little wristband my mom bought me when I was in 8th grade. I've only played live with this once. Well, I've only played live once, but that's not the point. Today, I have a gentleman that literally has lived every type of life you can think of. It's really mind-boggling. He's lived the life of 10 men, actually, and realistically, the only person I can think of having even close to a life is probably David Lee Roth of Van Halen. That's saying something. With a rock and roll heart, this person has literally been all around the world touring in bands like Stranger Six, which was nominated for Best Punk Band in San Diego Music Awards, along with other music legends, Pierce the Veil, Blink-182, The Locust. And he's also been in Fenix TX for anybody that's played Dave Mirra's old PlayStation 2 game. They were on that too. And toured with 30 Seconds to Mars, Panic at the Disco, the Misfits, as I mentioned, POD, which is pretty big for me being a wrestling fan and, a bad Christian.
POD are the homies.
Oh, they good people. So this person also made a name for himself being a porn star, having won every major award in all the biz shows. They call it the, I believe, Male Talent of the Year. That's AVN, XBiz, Inked, and etc. But don't sleep on his work ethic. He's done all these jobs, including landscaping, bartending, did decals for cars, and had his own graphic design company. It wouldn't really surprise me if he actually finished his dream of becoming a sommelier. Well, I don't know if it was really a dream, but it did interest him. But did I mention he has his own whiskey with his wife, Joanna Angel? This guy's been through it all, guys. So the person I'm speaking with, he would rather be known as Presley, but his name is Aaron Thompson. And he's the mastermind, the thinker behind the Empty Streets. The Empty Streets are releasing their EP, Age of Regret, via Cleopatra Records, August 6th. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, future legend, Aaron Thompson. Oye, ¿cómo está, papito?
Wow, that was probably the grandest intro I think I've ever had. Bravo. Thanks for having me in the dojo, man. I appreciate that.
Bro, I hope you're ready to brawl, man. It's going to be tough.
Always.
Oye, ¿tú hablamos español?
I grew up in San Diego, like right by Tijuana, so I can speak mierda Spanish. A little bit of Chicana slang and stuff, but that's about it. I can read it pretty well.
Okay. Man, the fact that you said shit in Spanish made me laugh. I know that's your favorite cuss word, but what about shit? Before we get to everything else, what about the word shit is your favorite cuss word? I gotta go fuck.
It's my favorite cuss word in Espanol.
Okay.
In English, I don't know, shit is just like, it's just but mierda, like that sounds like more grand to me.
Cussing in Spanish makes it better, man.
Yeah, I think in English, classic fuck, like can't go wrong with it. And you can use it in 1,000 ways.
So you're a bunch of things. Your mom's Japanese, your dad's German, and a couple others. Do you have an experience with any other languages too, or it's just the Spanish and English?
Well, I mean, growing up, in San Diego, it's almost all of my neighbors and my friends, growing up were almost all Mexican. So that was just sort of like in the neighborhood, what you would always hear. My mom, when we were real little, I think she spoke a little bit of Japanese, like a few phrases to us, occasionally or something, but it wasn't like we were taught the language or anything, no.
Before we get to everything else, your life, your accolades, bro, you just dropped another single for Age of Regret, and it's called Pleaser.
Yeah.
Because this is a combination of your life, and because a lot of people know the story, you're a preacher's kid, and you struggled with, okay, my parents are a little strict, and the religion, and I want to be on my own. Like, work really taught you, like, hey, I can get out. A lot of people would initially already see all those connections with this music video. So for me, I always go, the music video can be great, but it's the music. So when you were creating this song, was there a set plan like, okay, I want to make this song specifically with this in mind? Or was this one of those regular, like I was just creating it and it flowed out that way and then just turned into what it is?
Yeah, my style of writing is very like, I just, nothing's ever set out in mind. I just will, be going about my day or freaking asleep, or, I just hear things in my head, and all of a sudden I'll have to stop what I'm doing, and I'll have to either, scribble it down, or I'll sing it into my, phone for a minute just so I don't lose it. And then once I got a little nugget of an idea that I think is good, then I'll start building on it. But it always just starts with usually like a couple lines in my head. I just hear a melody and a couple phrases, and I'm like, fuck, okay, well, I can't get that out of my head, so let's do something with it.
When does that inspiration usually hit you? Because I'm not a musician, so bear with me, but I will have moments where, say, I'm asleep and a really good beat or a song that I know I've never heard of comes to me. So I have to drag my ass out of bed at like 2, 3 in the morning. But
Mm-hmm.
other people will say like, "Oh, I'm in the shower, so I need a guitar in the shower," or I'm on the bus or I'm reading. When does inspiration usually hit you?
All the time, at all times, doing all things. Sometimes it gets a little annoying because I'm like, fuck, I'm trying to get some shit done, but like, God, I got to get this thing out of my head. I think it's different for every individual. For me, it literally just hits at all times of the day, for any reason. There's no like rhyme or reason to it. And when it comes, I just sort of submit to it, and I jot it down. I try to like, and then I'll listen back with fresh ears later. And if it's horrible, then it'll never be seen again. And if it's something I like, then I'll kind of work on it more.
It's like Michael Jackson said, "You're just a hub for the music." So
If I hear something in my head, and to, because like the stuff that I write, I the sound and like the melodies are like what I as like a listener would want to hear. So almost like I'm hearing it as a fan first in my head, and then it's the challenge is, can I fucking create what's in my head, like in real life, and for the world. So that's like the trick of it all.
So as a fan, people will listen to songs, we'll get it our way, but I always like to hear the artist's rendition of what they
Mhm.
think the song means. So walk us through what pleaser means to you as opposed to what somebody else
Yeah.
might interpret it as.
Never like to get too I don't like to explain either too much, because I like people to kind of get out of it whatever they get out of it. And I think that's one of the cool things about about songs is same song can hit someone in 6 different ways and mean 6 different things to someone. And who am I to take whatever, who am I to take that experience away? So I like to keep it a little open-ended, but pleaser loosely is kind of a conversation uh, with God, and at the same time a conversation with a lover that you're furious with, and it's kind of a thing like you know growing up in church, you're told if you do this, this, and this, you're good. Like you'll go to heaven. You get like it's kind of on paper like a very A, B, and C thing, but the real world doesn't work like that. And it's a realization that like, fuck, I like did all the things you told me to, and this is still so fucked.
Mhm.
And it's just anger. It's just pure rage at that like realization.
Okay. That's a really good way to put it. And I also liked how you incorporated the back and forth for the ball pit. You're being pulled
Mhm.
apart by these issues that, you're trying to get past, but it's still bothering you. And then you're kind of like, God, where are you at? Not saying, for anybody that believes, don't take it with a grain of salt. You ever have a moment where you're like, God, I'm struggling with this, and you're praying, you're doing the reading, you're doing everything they tell you, and it never pans out.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was my whole youth. I mean, I stopped praying a long time ago, but my childhood was spent with, nights on my knees crying out to the sky, this imaginary thing that never I never got anything back. I never heard back. And that's kind of a gnarly, heavy realization when you're like, fuck, even though I did everything that I was supposed to, I'm still like out here like alone. What the hell?
Especially when that's all you know and you don't know the other
Yeah.
possibilities of how to.
Yeah. So, it's a real upbeat summer, summer booty. It's a real summer smash.
What's funny? You said that you don't do happy songs, and that made me
No.
think of Jimi Hendrix because he said he doesn't do happy songs either. The only happy song he had was Foxy, and I'm like, bro, listen, it's a great song, but maybe lyrically that's a happy song, but content wise, I'm like, yo, we about to ruckus, you know, we about to fight. So for this video, you had Mike Quasar, also a porn director, and has done his own stuff. Help with that. I wanted to know what he brought to the table. I know porn sets and music videos can go hand in hand. So what did he add to this video after you already came up with the idea? How was his influence?
So Mike and me have been working together in the adult industry for years and years now. And so I already knew his skill as a cinematographer, because even though people sometimes don't realize it, there are parts in porns, you know, with plots and stories and actual, like, you know, cinematography, and there's, you know, some skill involved. And I always saw his talent. And also he comes from music. He was in like a hair metal band back in the day. And, you know, he's a shredding drummer. And so even on porn sets, we're always just bullshitting about music and touring and shows and whatever. So when it came time to do the video, it was just a no brainer. I'm like, dude, you're a music guy, you're a cinematographer, you're my friend. Let's do this, man. So it was just one of those things where it was just like absolutely like just a no brainer to have.
In watching the video, for me personally, I see, having grown up in the church, I see a lot of the pulpit, but I was wondering, when you're on stage, having been in so many bands, and literally you paid your dues the right way, man. You're a big Elvis kid. Like if I were to perform on stage on the mic, I'm mimicking Bon Scott and Freddie Mercury. Those are my two guys.
You know, mimicking the greats, you know.
So for you, when you're on stage as a singer, who do you mimic? Because I saw the Elvis references, I saw those moves along with the preaching, but I'm wondering from the video, like, who else?
For me, I kind of divide it into like two categories. There's like classic, you know, frontmen, James Brown, Mick Jagger, you know, Joe Strummer, Elvis, Joan Jett, you know, like Little Richard, like, you know, these are just charismatic, just fireballs of just like, you can't take your eyes off them. And then I also have a like sort of a list of where I call like frontmen of like my generation, or like when I was a kid, who was I listening to? And those are guys like Dennis from Refused, Tim Armstrong from Rancid, John Reese from Rocket from the Crypt, you know, like just, you know, this punk rock, like cool guy from, you know, Mike Ness from Social D. When I was a young kid, I thought he was the coolest, you know? And so I kind of just pull from a little bit of both, like kind of like cool punk rock frontman that as a kid I just loved, and then classic iconic, you know, people from just music history that have always been good, you know, and just, so I try. And by no means do I pull it off by any stretch close to those people, but those are kind of like the people I draw a lot of like inspiration when I perform from.
People also see how humble he is. That's what happens when you pay your dues. All right, he's earned it though. So let's jump back to the very beginning. You're growing up in the household. Everybody's heard your stories, but you got your first guitar at 6.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
So being that, you know, you're working all the time and etc., was that something you wanted? Did you want to learn guitar? And then when you got the guitar, or at least started musically, what was that love like? Was it like, oh, I'm just doing this for fun, or did you gravitate? It's like, no, there's a little bit more to this.
How it started was we found, me and my little brother, he was a year younger than me, we found like my mom's old like hippie guitar in the garage. It was like in a box. We're like, oh, Mom, we didn't know you had a guitar. That's cool. And, you know, I don't think I was 6. I was probably like 9 or 10, something like that. And, you know, like, oh, like plunk, you know, mess around on it, whatever, kids. And we bought like a book of chords and just tried to teach ourselves playing, you know, Nirvana songs and Green Day, whatever, you know, was on the radio at the time that was easy. And it was just like a fun thing for us to do as kids. And then in high school is when I kind of started going, oh, like we could like be in a band, like, you know, like with my friends and stuff. And I remember my very first band, I was 15, and it was with like kids at church, like kids from the youth group. And we were called Set Apart, and we were like a youth crew, like old school hardcore band. And we would cover like Gorilla Biscuits and frickin' Youth of Today. And then we'd also sing about Jesus and not doing drugs, you know, like whatever. And like, I was 15. I could barely even, I was playing bass. Like I, barely knew how to tune the thing, but it was so much fun. And that's kind of like that's where I realized it could be like more than just, hanging out and just doing this like alone for fun. It could be like a real thing. Once I got a taste of playing in front of people and playing shows, I was like, all right, here we go.
It's a good high.
Yeah.
Now, when were you first exposed to what my mother, even though she's the Christian in our household, calls the devil music? Because I remember growing up, for me, like I wanted to get I think it was the AC/DC album or Black Sabbath album. She said, like, I'm not getting you that devil's music. And then for Christmas, she turned around and got me NWA. And I'm like, okay, but I got the point, NWA is real life. This is more your culture, versus this devil music, which she didn't understand. So for me, I had a little bit of the turmoil, dealing with the evil thoughts. When were you first exposed to, I would say, the darker music? And when did you first hear the Clash? I would love to know what is your favorite Clash song.
Death or Glory, probably, or Clamp Down.
Okay.
Tie. So on the Clash, I first heard the Clash when I was a freshman in high school, and I thought I like knew about punk, whatever. I was just kind of like a little kid and just learning. And there was an older girl, like an older like punk rock girl who was a senior. She was like, "Oh, look at you, you little cute kid with your dog collar and your little fingernails painted." And I'm like, "Oh, I like whatever." Social D and Bad Religion. And she's like, let me make you she made me a tape, and she made me like the tape, like, and it had like the Clash, Cockspar, the Specials, Madness, the Business. Like it was just a history lesson in like punk and ska and like all that stuff. And so that's when I first heard the Clash, the Dead Boys, and I started to really like get into to first wave and like 70s punk, and it was all, I don't even remember her name, it was all because of this lovely punk rock girl who took a little kindness on me and made me a mixtape.
Little angel. So I find it fascinating because when I was growing up, I wanted out at 18, but times have changed. It's it's not like that for most American kids, but you hit a point where you're like, you know what, I'm done from all the work. Like you were doing mulch and sprinkler systems. Like it doesn't sound like you ever had a summer vacation.
Well, we weren't allowed to. We grew up real poor, so obviously any working was like the thing you did, and my parents were also, I don't really actually know why. I think maybe they thought we'd get into trouble or something if we had a vacation or nothing to do all summer. So we always from when I think I was like 11 or 12, my parents would be like, you have to go to summer school or work. And I'm like, I'm 12, like, and I got straight A's, I was like a good student. I'm like, what, kids in summer school are like the ones who like had to redo like math or whatever. Like, what the hell's going on here? And so I just started going to work. And so my pop would drop me off at like 5 a.m. at a landscaping company, and my little fucking 12-year-old ass would be mowing lawns at apartment complexes and trimming hedges and whatever. And like, I don't know, it was kind of the norm for me. But I think in a way I'm kind of grateful because it instilled like a pretty hardcore work ethic in me, and I'm I've never been lazy, and it works well with the DIY sort of nature of my whole life. Is like, all right, well, I guess we'll just roll up our sleeves and wake up a little earlier and go work a little harder and get it done,
So when you did move out, you already had the tattoo. Your dad said if you ever have a tattoo, you're out. So when you moved out, you've had the tattoo, you kind of flashed them like, hey, I'm out, see you later. What was your next step before starting the band and going on? What was your plan of attack? Did you start school and then get your associates and then hit the band?
Well, I mean, since I was 15, off and on, then throughout high school and college age, I was playing in some level of a little local band or something. And the band that kind of took off or whatever a little bit was the Stranger Six, and that band I think was started right after high school with one of my just high school buddies, one of my best friends. And I remember we just wrote a couple songs, and we didn't even have a band, and we lied to a club. That's what it was, because we just were like, yeah, we have a band, like book us. And they gave us a show date, and we're like, oh shit, like, I guess we need to like call a few people, and so and yeah, I think I was like I don't know, 19, 20, and simultaneously I was going to junior college, Grossmont Junior College in San Diego, studying for to get a degree in graphic design, which is what I was kind of doing as well. And then the Stranger Six, after a couple years of playing shows, and we released a record ourselves, we got a small record deal, and so I was like, fuck school, I'm gonna go on tour and be a rock star. And so basically I got my associates and I got accepted to San Diego State, and then that summer we got our record deal, and I just never went back.
Having that as a start and making it already, like, granted, it's still small scale.
I don't know. We never made any money.
But you're still doing it.
Oh yeah.
I would consider making it, living that lifestyle.
Yeah, very. I've been so fortunate to be able to relatively never really work like a cubicle job or like one of those drone 9-to-5 things. And part of it was I always made it a priority to never live that life. I just fiercely refused. Mm-hmm. But part, I think, is I'm a little lucky and I'm a little fortunate, and I've gotten some cool opportunities along the way. So I can't just say it was me, like it's one of those things where I have to sort of like, thank whatever fucking God I don't believe in anymore, Yeah.
Who are some of the bands that took you guys under your wing? You're touring, and even guys you still, talk to today that come to mind is like, damn, you know what? When we were really starving, trying to, bum showers.
There's a guy, actually, man, and he's been on my mind lately. One of my best buddies from back in the day, Jeff Sands, he's out in Nashville now. He recently got an insanely bad motorcycle accident. He had both his arms amputated this week. And like, man, shout out to Jeff. I love you, brother. He was a guy who he was in a band called Death on Wednesday and a band called The Strays on TBT. And we would go out and open for them a lot. And he would take us out, and we were kind of learning how to tour and learning how to be, in a band. And he was a little older and he was real cool. And he taught me a lot about like stage presence and just, like how to be in a touring band and how to do the thing and how to live the life. And so guys like that are who kind of were my inspirations. And most of them aren't big time famous guys. It's like, punk rock guys that we all just were, sleeping in the same fucking van and just grinding it out together.
I mentioned I was in Jersey, but first things first, shout out to Jeff. Loving his family. I'm a Jersey kid. Philadelphia is my second home. So do you have any stories? Spinal Tap stories would be great.
Okay.
With the band in Jersey or Philly, and the second part of that afterwards, what was it like touring with the Misfits? And did you enjoy their company?
Well, I never toured with the Misfits. We got to open for them.
Okay.
And it was, yeah. And it was awesome. Open for the Misfits. Fuck yeah.
Or Glenn was in it?
No, this was so many variations. This was when it was Dez from Black Flag was playing with them. And it was a 3-piece. And I can't really remember, honestly, who was in the lineup, but I remember it was actually like a terrible show for us because we were kind of like a pop punk band and we didn't really fit on the bill, and the crowd hated us and they were like yelling at us, but we were just like, we played with the Misfits, fuck yeah. And the band, the guys were really cool, in the band, they were really nice, and their whole crew was cool, but the fans were just awful. So I actually remember it as being like a funny show, as far as Jersey, I actually never got to tour the East Coast because when I was touring with Fenix TX, it was Europe. So I was like in other countries. And then when I was touring in, the smaller punk band, Stranger Six and stuff, we weren't big enough to make it all around the country. So we were doing like up to Seattle and back, and, Arizona and like, Vegas, Reno, stuff like that. Kind of the West Coast loop. So I actually never got to play in Jersey. I've heard about the basement shows, and I've heard epic stories. My wife's a Jersey punk, so she came up in that scene, and I've heard it's legendary.
I had no idea she went to Rowan.
Rutgers. She went to Rutgers.
Rutgers? Oh,
yeah.
Places. That's my fault. I told you to call me out on my shit, man.
I got you.
Because there's 2 locations for Rutgers.
I've never been to either of them, so.
Now let's skip ahead. You're
Mhm,
back, you're in the bar scene, and you're
mhm.
thinking of becoming a sommelier.
Yeah.
How far did you get for that before you said, you know what, probably not? Because that is you're right. The whole entire world of learning how alcohol is created is fascinating. It's
Yeah.
amazing, whether
Yeah.
it's beer, whiskey, etc. So
Yeah.
where did you get to the point where it's like, I might do it, and then you stopped?
Well, prior to meeting my wife and being in the adult industry, I was, playing in some local bands. Whenever, I would get a gig with Phoenix TX, I would do that, but it wasn't like a full on, you know, thing. So I was bartending at night at like a fancy high end cocktail and like wine bar, and I just got really into it, and I started getting like really fascinated by the history of spirits and distillation and alcohol, and just the varieties of wine, and what, all the different terroirs, stuff like that. And so the bar encouraged us to study and to kind of yeah, actually, they might have actually required it. Now that I think about it, I think they actually, part of working there, they handed you the level 1 psalm book, and they're like, get cracking. And no, yeah, they did, because we would get tested on a regular basis on different chapters. So basically, I studied the entire level 1. And I did travel like to Jalisco, Mexico, and I toured like in the city of tequila, like a lot of tequila distilleries. And I've been to, I traveled to some vineyards in Sonoma, and I did some traveling, and that was all like encouraged by the bar. A bunch of bartenders would go out and we'd have educational trips, and we get super loaded, and it was fun. You party and learn. And then I met Joanna, and basically when I moved from San Diego to Los Angeles, after, basically I met Joanna, we started dating. I was working at the bar, I was playing in bands, I was running my graphic design company, and I was studying, the sommelier stuff. And I thought, oh, this will be like a, like, if none of my bands take off, this is a cool thing to do, and I can like have a career here, and this will be like a fun thing to go after. And basically I didn't really like want to stop. It just sort of, once I moved up to Los Angeles to live with Joanna, uh, she kind of was like, ah, man, like, I don't like, how about maybe you don't work at a bar for a little bit? Cause like, you get home at 5 a.m, like it's a whole lifestyle, and I used to drink a lot. I was a big drinker. And she's like, I just, maybe you can like find something else to do. And I'm like, oh, like, well, what do you mean? Like, what should I do? I want to have like, I like having a night gig, or I like having something going on, other than just the bands. And how, like, you're not always on tour, there's not always a show. So in between, I kind of wanted to have a gig. And that's where she's like, you should do porn. And so that's basically like, I stopped all the bartending and all the sommelier studying and all of that, because I started doing porn.
You mentioned her in all these interviews, the love of your life, and
Mhm.
I'm fascinated by romance stories. I love stories where it's like, yeah, I saw her, I was on my bike and I picked her up, and then others where it's like years upon years. Your story I find funny, like you're like, oh, she's awesome, she's great, and then you have an opportunity for the date, and then you blow it, and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? I,
Yeah.
I wanted to know, what was that moment you knew, or at least started to think like, you know what? I know there was a feeling here, but I have to act on this.
The first date,
They,
like, it was just, and it wasn't anything glamorous, it wasn't anything, uh, we met for lunch on a Sunday at a little British pub in Van Nuys in the valley by her house. And we we just talked about music for like 4 hours. Like, we didn't talk about sex or porn, like nothing. We talked about our tattoos and fucking what bands we grew up with. And she made fun of like the West Coast scene. And I'm like, whoa, you East Coast people are so snobby. Like, we were almost like two like punk rock kids, like kind of just being kids again. And it was like, after that, I was like, dude, like, that's it, my
so
girl.
now you said the reason
Hmm.
she's the most important person to you is because she's the only person to fully understand you on
Yeah.
that level. Could you
Yeah.
elaborate more? Because anybody could say it's like, oh, you know, you weren't that close with your parents, or you know this, but you've had
Right.
so many experiences with people.
Mm.
Was it just, hey, you know what? She gets it because she's a mirror of you in her own
No,
way. Or,
no. She's if anything, we're pretty polar opposite. But what I meant by that is it's the first person and the first relationship where I felt safe enough to be you know, as real, you know, everyone wants to be the real them, the most authentic them, but the whole world is kind of designed for you to not, you know, if you want to, you know, succeed in a job interview, you're not actually going to be the real you. You're going to like dress it up, and you're going to, you know, have your resume, you know, like you're going to do things to reach your goals. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But in a world that's designed to kind of never be real you, it's nice to find someone who you can do that with.
I can see that.
So yeah.
With you guys being together and having the porn industry, you got into whiskey. I want to pull back to the bar real quick.
Yeah.
Doom's whiskey. Doom's whiskey. Is that a whiskey straight?
It's 100 proof rye.
Yep. Okay. When you finally found the right distiller, how really a part of the process? I know she handled the business aspect. People say that is the cutthroat business of all businesses, you know. But when you found a distiller, you found people you liked, how did you have a little bit of you in the process? Walk us through that.
A lot of me. Basically, how we created Dooms was I had a loose vision of like a flavor profile. I wanted it to be 100 proof rye. I wanted it aged in white oak. You know, I had a few like kind of like bullet points that I wanted to hit. And then from there, I would kind of meet with master distillers all over the States, some in Canada, and just talk, you know, hey, here's kind of what I want to build, what I want to create. Is this something that maybe you guys are, you know, could handle? And, you know, what's the cost and kind of all that shit. Sorry. And
all that weed,
what,
bro.
There it is. Sorry, I smoked a big old joint before we started and it just burped out. So when I found basically a master distiller who I also liked his boutique whiskey, which was the first thing. I'm like, oh, you make great shit, so that means you could probably make good shit for me. And just, you know, kind of we jived, and it was the right kind of feeling and the right price, and the product turned out amazing. So from there, he took my kind of loose vision and would mail me little vials of different stuff, you know, different mash bills and different notes, and I'd kind of taste, and then I'd send him back my notes. And after a couple back and forths, I was like, yo, this is the one here. Like, I think we got it. And from there, we threw it into the barrels to age for 26 months. And in that 2 years, I was designing the packaging, the logo, the bottle, you know, just all the back end stuff. Joanna had to do a lot of like back end, you know, paperwork and licenses and just crazy business shit that's way above my pay grade. So that 2 years went by pretty quick, you know. And then once it was done and we bottled it, and we're like, cool, we got whiskey. So the whole thing took actually about like 4 years, I think, or so to from like sort of when we started really getting it going to when we had it in our hands. So it was a long time.
What is happening that's special for 2022 for the whiskey? Because I know you have distribution already in other states. What's happening special?
We're currently, we have full distro in California, and we have online direct to consumer distro in all 50 states, meaning like, unfortunately, like if you're like a bar in Texas, you can't carry it yet. But if you're just a person, you can order it on doomswhiskey.com and ship a bottle to you if you're of legal drinking age in whatever state you're in, legal, you know the deal. But our in 2022, fingers crossed, we're gonna hit our next market, which is another very, 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 very awesome state. But I can't say it yet because it's not quite there. But yeah, we've got some good shit lined up for 2022 with the whiskey. It's just kind of still it's like a almost there thing. So I don't want to jinx it, you know.
Absolutely no problem. I understand that. So Empty Streets, your product, your love, everything. it started off as just a little project. And when I was on your YouTube, I saw EPs for, the self-titled EP and the Ghosts, Northern Lights. How did you start Empty Streets? Mainly concerned with how you, got the name. And then I was curious to who the lead singer was. Her voice is very captivating.
Well, unfortunately, that Northern Lights is not me. That's another artist that I have no idea how to get him off my page. So that one, it's a cool song, and I've listened to it, but it's not me. Empty Streets is me. I'm the singer. I write everything. I play everything. There is no band. It's just me. It's a solo project, if you will. Basically, back when Stranger Six and Phoenix TX and like kind of the bands I was in kind of just, fizzled out or it wasn't happening anymore. I've always written songs. Like I've never stopped since I was 15 years old writing songs like all the time. And so I just kept writing songs. And at some point I'm like, well, I need like to put it out in some way. And I didn't want to just put my name like Justin Timberlake or something. I thought that was too corny. So I just made up Empty Streets as like the name that I'll release all of my solo music under. And I actually put out like kind of a secret EP that no one knows about like 10 years ago. So there's actually a first Empty Streets EP that's like actually even before Demons, and it was only I just put it on like a SoundCloud, so it's not even on any. I might re-release it at some point, remaster it. And that one was wild because I recorded it with. It was a solo project, but I hired like some players, and so it has like a live guitars, and it's a whole different vibe. It's still sad songs though.
You do all the music for Burning Angels scenes, and
Yeah,
of course, you do the graphic art and etc. But I was curious. You said it's different for Empty Streets than being in a band because it's all on you. There can be times where a musician goes, "Hey, this is my idea. Play a riff." You come up with the bass line.
totally.
I didn't know the difference between scoring a scene versus creating music that was going to be released as like, okay, this is an actual composition.
Right.
What was the differences for you and the challenges compared to both?
Well, scoring, it's funny because scoring adult films is actually how I kind of got the sound for Empty Streets. Because during scoring the movies, it's not really like you're not for the type of movies I was scoring. It wasn't really guitar based. It was a lot of like 80s kind of synth, with beats and stuff. And I, so I just did that for a couple of years, and it was fun. I really enjoyed like plunking around on the keyboards, and I liked like the tones, and I liked exploring gear and vintage keyboards and shit. And at some point I was like, well, fuck, I write songs all the time, and these days I don't have a band. Let's just take this kind of shit I'm doing like for soundtracks, but like we'll write songs around it. And basically that's how Empty Streets, the modern version that we all know now, kind of was born. I was like, well, instead of just always writing stuff with no singing, and just little synthy lines, let's like write songs this way, like full on songs. And so that's kind of how it all started.
For me personally, my favorite song that you've released so far, I still have to hear Age of Regret, was Save
Right.
Me. That
Thank
one, it was just the perfect mix of, you got your synth, you got your darkness, but it's still in a captivating story. I think I already mentioned it. The way I've seen you do lyrics is, it reminds me of a Nas feel.
I love Nas. I grew up listening to Nas.
But he has this amazing ability to take words poetically, even if it doesn't rhyme, even if it doesn't sound like it deserves to be there.
Right.
He'll mash it in a way that, hey, works.
Leave it. That's wild. That fuck, man. What an honor to be to have that comparison. Like shit, that's so cool. No one's ever dropped that before.
So that one is just man. See how excited, see how deeply affected I am by your music. I can't speak proper English. I gotta go back to Spanish. Oh yeah, man. So while you're creating, you said Demons was like you feeling it out, trying to get it. Did you master MIDI?
Do we ever master anything? I learned it well enough to do some shit, like with Demons, I really had no clue how to record. I mean, the guy who mixed it was screaming at me like, what the hell are these files, and I really, it was like that was almost like my crash course in how to like track, how, I didn't know how to, all the records I made previously in bands, there was like an engineer, there's people that helped me do it. And I had never just been alone. And like, I didn't even know how to like set the mic up barely, I was like watching YouTube tutorials. So recording Demons was like me learning how to record. It was me learning how to like track on, on the, how to like learn the computer. I'd never really worked in Reason or, like the software before. And basically by the time I got to Age of Regret, I was like, okay, now I think I got an idea of how to get out this vibe I want.
When you finally completed Age of Regret, this is the new one. This is what's dropping in like 2 weeks, people. You gotta do it. You guys, you scored a record deal with Cleopatra.
Yeah.
Initially, people don't know it's a really big record, label, etc. Initially, you were like, record deal, no record deal. It now at times like this, especially with like Chance the Rapper showing and like the old school, not Run DMC, I'm sorry, MC Hammer. You can release and make a lot of money by yourself. What about their offer made you go, you know what? Why not? Why not join them? Other than the names that they have, what benefits does it bring?
Well, I mean, the biggest benefit to me is some validity, some credibility. That's an iconic label. The roster is insane. Just to be put up there next to some of the artists they've had, that alone is enough to just be like, wow, because you're right. I already did release a record on my own, and it's, for me, like, you just said a point, like you can make a lot more money, or you can make money that way. It may sound corny, but I don't do this for money. I make money in adult films, and I do okay, so for me, I'm in a very magical place, and I'm very fortunate as an artist where what you're seeing with Empty Streets is like, I'm not doing it for any other reason than it's just like in my heart, and it's like it's real. It's like it's what I just got to get out, and I would be doing it with or without a label. Just that a label comes along and says, "Whoa, like what you're doing is fucking cool. Let's link up and like like powers combined. Like let's see if we can blow this up even more." And just the fact that their legacy is so cool, and I'm in LA, they're an iconic Hollywood label. It just kind of seemed to make sense. And so far they've been awesome, so it's shout out to Cleo.
Age of Regret, you got your chops, you know what you're doing, and you see the vision. You have Jaime from Pierce the Veil. You know all these rock guys.
Jaime. Don't call him Jaime, it's Jaime.
Jaime the bro. All right, cool. My apologies, Jaime. Sorry. Yeah. So with mixing, you have the music, you're good to go. He's mixing it. I know certain bands saying like how important that process is, like Megadeth for He Tells, that little part like if there's a new way. Dave Epperson said like, hey, the guy who was mixing it actually cut the music from when Dave Mustaine was talking, and it created such a hook. So Jaime, what was his influence? How did you guys go back and forth?
Yeah, it's crazy because like me and Jaime, he's a San Diego dude. We all came up together in the same scene. My Stranger Six opened for Pierce the Veil a bunch back in the day, and we've been kind of like scene buddies forever. And I had no idea that he was like producing and mixing and doing like post-production. And I heard a joke song he made for a friend for like their birthday. And it was like a hilarious, like Taylor Swift sounding pop punk song with my buddy who couldn't sing at all. And like, it was totally a joke, but I was like, yo, the production on this is like, for a joke, even like, man, this sounds phenomenal. Like you mix this, okay. And I was like, yo, dude, like, you want to mix my record? And he was like, hell yeah, let's do this, man. And it was a trip for both of us because we did it during COVID. So we never were in the same room. It was just all phone calls, text, Dropbox, FaceTime, whatever. And what I basically did was I said, when you're mixing this, I kind of want you to think if like Depeche Mode and The Weeknd and Lana Del Rey and Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds all had a sonic baby, if you will. And those were kind of the big four for his mix instructions, where I'm like, I want it to fucking bump like The Weeknd, like I want it to move, have a beat, and when you're playing in the car, the shit should fucking bump. But I want it to have like texture and ethereal atmosphere, like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds records, and that kind of weary dreariness of Lana Del Rey, and that like timelessness. And then I want that Depeche Mode fucking classic tones of synth to shine through. And those were kind of the big ones that he got. And man, he nailed it like so fast. Like I remember when he sent me Age of Regret was the first song he mixed, and he sent me the rough mix, and I had, I think, like 2 little notes, and I was like, we're good, done, next, and then it was just like boom, 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 like he just was knocking them out of the park. So shout out to Jaime, man, the man.
EP track lists. You got Pleaser, Age of Regret, All You Deserve, Millions, Heartthrob of the Ages. I thought that was funny. Was That Not Enough, featuring Ace Vaughn Johnson, I believe, of LA Guns. And I've Been Riding with a Ghost, Jason Moline song. I believe it's a Ohio cover. You've covered Selena Gomez. You just did one with the guys for Hall & Oates. Why did you make it a point to cover Jason on this one?
Well, it's one of my favorite songs of all time, like ever. So that was one thing. Also, Jason Molina's work is so dark and so sad, and it's so just brutal. Like for anyone who doesn't know, go listen to some Jason Molina or Songs Ohio. And I, as a person who's drawn to just brutally dark, heart-wrenching songs, I've always wanted to do one of his songs, and this was the one that I kind of felt I could do it in the Empty Streets style, because not every song you can kind of do like that, and I kind of just heard that like droning tone and that just evil thump, and I was like, okay, here we go. And the creepy vocals, and then I just in one afternoon, I just laid down a rough demo, and I was like, all right, I think this will be cool. And that was just it. But I make it a point on every release to have a cover of some kind. And I always try to make it a cover song that's not Depeche, not Sisters of Mercy, not like a normal thing that's already in the lane. I try to pull from somewhere else and just see what we can do.
What was the biggest pain in the ass in the recording process, or the song that was the most difficult to really get, like, come on, we almost got it?
The biggest pain in the ass was getting my fucking dogs to stop barking, so stop ruining the takes.
Yes. Oh my gosh, man. Preach.
So many heartfelt takes were just, I'm like, ah. But I mean, again, all these songs are so hyper personal for me, even though I kind of dress them up in this artsy way. Like they're deep down really, I'm not like telling made up stories. I'm not writing from I don't write songs like about like about other people. This is just me and my weird darkness, and it's almost, these songs are my therapy, basically. It's how I get out all of the issues from my youth, from being a pastor's son, from coping with having Tourette's and dealing with the issues with that my whole life, and the mental illness that most of us go through, and just when I write these songs, this is my way of sort of like vomiting it all out, and once it's there, I can like, all right, I can go about my business. I don't have to be a miserable like person just beat down by the horror of the world, because I can just write a song about it, get it out, it lives there, and then we can move on. So that's kind of like the way I always write songs.
Being such an influence, specifically for Empty Streets, what's the best fan mail you got, or at least group idea of someone saying thank you for what you've created musically? Not like saying bands prior to or porn, but someone that you got that and you're like, well, fuck, I really did that. It touched your heart a little bit more.
Oh, you know what? One thing that was super cool was I linked up with this organization called Punks for Autism. And it's just a cool collective of artists, musicians, and people from the punk scene who want to just raise awareness for autism and like kind of, show that it's fucking rad, like you're a superhero, you're a rock star, you're not, it's not a bad thing. And growing up with Tourette's as a child, and well, still have it, it's not like it went away, but growing up with those kinds of tics and twitches and just and then the treatment you get, when you're young, and the sort of bullying and all that, it's always given me like a special place in my heart for the autistic community, for anyone with special needs. And it was cool that my music brought about those people through my door, and now like they send me shirts and I'll fucking rock them, and it's cool. It's like just a cool thing, like, wow, like that came about because I was making music. Cool.
I want to say his name is Tim Howard, the soccer
Okay.
player. I may have messed it up, but he also had Tourette's, and he gave the grandest goalie show at the World Cup I've ever seen. I remember watching that. Well, I really wasn't watching it, but I was watching his saves.
Right.
He said there's ways to help with the tics and etc. How did you formulate your way to handle it?
What a lot of people need to understand is there's like a spectrum of Tourette's, and not everybody has the same level, the same manifestations. So for example, when I was really young, the way mine showed up, I didn't say cuss words. I didn't say, things like that, but I would go, I would squeak. I would like make a squeak sound like all the time, and I couldn't help it. And I would, my neck and my shoulders were always kind of twitching. My head was shaking, people would be like, yo, what the hell's wrong with this kid? And first of all, over time, again, kids are pretty harsh, when you're young and you're kind of like that. So I was like, yo, I'm never going to get ahead socially or in life if I'm like this. I gotta figure this out. And my parents were pretty tough, so they didn't put me on any medicine or nothing. They were just like, yo, you gotta learn, you gotta figure out the world, how to exist. And so a lot of it was just sheer like willpower. It was like I won't be like a victim, or I won't be disadvantaged. Get me all choked up. And so it was kind of like a survival thing. I was like, in order to survive, got me talking about real shit, man.
Sure, bro, I got you.
In order to survive in this world and make it, in many ways, I was like, I gotta figure out how to handle this. So I just learned growing up how to, mask it and hide it, basically. But it doesn't go away. It's always there.
I have been so fortunate, just thinking about how all the combinations have made me who I am. My dad's atheist. He hates religion. My mom's Christian.
Oh,
I got a little bit of both. My mom is the one, like, if I have an emotional need, I need to talk something out, I go to her. If I killed somebody or I did something illegal, I gotta go to dad. He's the realist. He knows what to do.
Hide the body shit, you gotta.
So I can't fathom not having that family support. Like I could do anything, and mom and dad got my back. They certainly have expressed they hate it. Oh God. But
that's a good parent for you. That's a real parent.
But hearing your story with your dad,
right?
It's kind of like, it seems a little hypocritical, but I can also see the fear from the Christian standpoint, like, this is my son's soul, eternal damnation.
Right.
When he barred you from your grandmother's funeral after he found out about Joanna,
that was heavy.
Is there a part of you that still wants to reconcile, or at least have that one last conversation with him? Like me and my dad, even now, I love him to death.
Mm-hmm.
I piss him off to no end. And I know I love him, but the way he interprets some of my actions is, boy, you don't act like you love me. I'm like, have a dad. I'm, the son. We're banging it out. So my biggest fear is to have a argument with someone I know that I love, or just even if we end on bad terms, at least I say, hey, I love you.
Yeah, there's still like a line of communication is still there, and there's still like a branch to grab onto.
So are you thinking about one last attempt to reconcile? I know your mom still, talks to you when she can. Also, on being a doctor, but
Now, it's one of those things where of course, like there's always that like back of your mind thing, like, oh, maybe, at some point they'll come around and we can kind of, we'll never probably see eye to eye, never probably be fucking best buds, but you know, I would always like to think that there might be some sort of way to reach a mutual respect for each other as people, and like, you know, but at the same time, I've learned over the years that I can't like hold out for that, you know, and like wait around either. So while like I love my pop, I just got to live my life, and like he knows where to find me, you know. It's one of those things where it's just kind of the way it goes, you know.
What kind of doctor is your mom?
Uh, Medical. I don't.
So all around.
I remember growing up, she was mostly involved with pediatrics, like babies and newborns and kid stuff. So, but she became like a doctor like after I moved out. Like, I mean, she was a nurse for most of my childhood, you know, just working the graveyard shift at the hospital. And over time, I think she was going to school like the whole time, and I think she just finally got her doctorate a few years ago. Yeah.
So you and Xander Corvus have similar upbringings, and I was curious what those talks were when you guys first met, and be like, yo man, you grew up a, you know, pastor's kid, I grew up in the church.
When we first met on a set of a gangbang, we didn't talk about any of that.
Or at least rock stars, because he was a lead singer. I think he was a lead singer. I know he was in a band too.
And he's done some singing. We did a song together once. We tracked it for a Burning Angel movie. It was fun. We did like a death rock song, and he sang and I played guitar. It was cool. But yeah, no, Xander's one of my buds. He's it's funny because on adult film sets, you keep the conversation light. You know, we're not trying to get too heavy. So you know, we actually haven't talked too much with each other about like our upbringing, I would say. But you know, we definitely we spent some time together. You know? But yeah, he's one of my boys, and I know his story well because I've you know seen other podcasts and interviews with him. But it is funny because now that you bring it up, I'm like, I don't think we've ever really had like super gnarly deep conversation about that shit. I think we just know that it exists in each other, and we're like, cool.
So back to Empty Streets, you guys have never performed live. When is it time for everyone to open up? Because for future reference, for generations to come, we're still in the pandemic, 2021.
Yeah.
Who did you have in mind as the people that would tour with? Or are you just gonna go like, hey, I'll call some buddies up and we'll see?
Basically, so I'm taking with this whole project, I'm doing things that I've never done before. I'm doing things unconventionally because why the fuck not, you know? So I'm not going to do a band like a traditional band. What I'm going to do is there's a really cool electro goth producer DJ. She goes by Ophelia here in LA. I've already done one. We released a song, a single, Vehement, together, and it's been out for a while. And the collaboration was really fun. So she's actually going to be part of my live show, playing some synth, doing some like, you know, live drum hits and stuff and lights, and it's just going to be the two of us.
Well, man, if you need a bad roadie, I got you on that front, because I got to throw in the plug for myself like everyone else would. So now, with the release of the music, you're always writing.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna wait for the next EP, or are you gonna, just plug this to death? Because again, Cleopatra Records, you now have an assortment of connections other than what you already had. So you can say, hey, can I do a collaboration with so-and-so? Who would you want to work with?
My biggest collab that I want to do right now is with some friends of mine from San Diego, Prayers. They're not only are they an awesome group, but they're like, we all grew up in the same punk scene together. Me and Rafa have kind of known who each other is through the scene for a long time. And I love Dave Parlay. Like, he's just such a nice dude, and dude, they're killing it. Like they've got their thing so dialed, and it's not too far off from what I'm doing, even though it's a different thing. You know, I think it would be a cool collab, and I think the fans from both of ours would really like it.
In the aspects, because this is a question that really caught me off guard when I came up with it. You guys said porn is like the hardest job you ever had.
Oh yeah.
Versus being on stage, and what about porn? You got to give more other than the physical aspect. I'm talking more emotional, because I remember Lemmy Kilmister talking about Bon Scott on stage. He's like, yo, I saw him on stage. He went on to the back. He dropped.
Right.
Couldn't get up. They lifted him up, gave him a shot, threw him back out there. And that, he said, that's how it's done. So when I hear the stories between porn and rock and roll, I kind of equate both of them. So what gives porn a little bit more of an edge once you've already become accustomed to, hey, I'm naked in front of people?
All right, two things. One, it depends on who you ask. So
Okay.
for me, going out on stage in front of 10,000 people and playing a show is not stressful. Like, that's fucking exciting for me. I'm like, let's go. There's no anxiety, no fucking nothing. No, I'm not shy, but like, I like loving it. Let's exist here. Walking into a porn set with 15 people and bright lights and a weird outfit you got to put on, and you just met that's not easy. And for me, maybe for some guys it is, but that's a whole different game, and that's a whole level of like, I always kind of like to equate being a porn star, being a porn performer, as like being similar to like being an MMA fighter. You're training all the time. Everything you eat, you're thinking about. You go to bed at a certain time. You're in the gym, like, and guess what? When it's like, when that bell rings, ding, 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 and it's like the fight. Well, that's the movie. That means it's like the director says action, and bringing, you better be ready. like, there's a lot that you better just kind of like be ready for when that light goes on. And just like in a fight, if you do well, if you are victorious, if you do a good porn scene, you feel like you just you're on top of the ropes. You're like, look at this. And if you fail or falter, you're pretty humiliated, and you kind of go home with your tail between your legs. So for that kind of reason, to me, being in a band or playing music on stage, it is something that comes so, I don't even have to think about it. It's like I could do it in my sleep, versus porn. I gotta like prep. I gotta like train. I gotta, and then there's the whole mind game of it, to get your dick hard on command. And that's a whole Jedi mind thing of its own, let alone just being in shape physically. So
You stated that you like the challenge of trying to meet the person, try and get, as close as you can, figure them out, and then that helps with the acts on set. Being that you love people, and
yeah.
that is your thing, like you're the guy who walks up like, hey man, what you doing today? And then you start talking, and having the life you had, you can talk to anybody. Have you thought about diving into psychology as just to learn it as a profession? Has that ever sparked your interest?
No, because shit, man. I don't think I'm in any position to advise anyone, or also the way I'm not really into like the book science side of those things. I like to philosophize more and romanticize things, and kind of like, I'm that guy. I'm up in the clouds. I don't really care about the deep science of it. Like, you can tell me the chemicals or whatever and so no, I've never really had any interest in psychology or anything of the sort. I just like people.
Who's a person that you would say is really just a light? Like it doesn't matter. You always know those people. It's like, damn, that's a really good dude. Shout out to Samuel the Prophet. That's my light. Just a good freaking dude. Just, they enjoy life. They love people. And I think the hardest thing that they've mastered, sometimes without trying, is just being genuine. The reason I always shout out Samuel is because he genuinely cares. He genuinely, will speak his mind with concern. I remember, oh my God, I don't remember why. I was at school one time. We went to school near Villanova, Eastern University. And, I'm shooting the wind with him, and his friend calls, and she struggles with, depression.
Okay.
He doesn't have a car. So, 5 minutes into that text, he's like, ah, shit, I got to get to Princeton.
Okay.
New Jersey? Yeah, man. I was like, well, shit, for the cause, I'll drive you. But automatically it switched. Like, I'm going, what train is, working at 3 a.m.? So who's a person like that you know?
I mean, my buddy Jeff, man, who I unfortunately, I brought up earlier, who just went through a terrible accident. He was that guy who, even when like his band started to get bigger, and then they signed a deal, or they'd be playing a bigger show, it was never, it was always like, you're with us, brother, come on in. Like there's no hierarchy here. We're all the same. And at the same time, he also though taught me like, yo, we're doing something here. Like we're living a life not everyone gets to. So here's kind of how to roll, how to, how to hang, how to, like he really taught me how to like be cool, for lack of a better word. And so like, just fuck Jeff, shout out to you, man.
Being that we're on the subject of our mortality and things that can happen, what is some life or death experiences you've had, or at least one that every time I read your story, it's like, yo, go get her. It just keeps on getting better and better. And a lot of people have those moments where it's like, well, shit, I realized I could die. So that's when I started changing how I looked at life. What was a moment for you like that?
I mean, I've had my share of like, physically, like, car accidents, just whatever shit like that. But I don't think I really had a moment per se. I think it was sort of like a realization when I was, like 19, 20 years old, at 21. And I would start to see, that was when some of my friends were starting to get pregnant, or, some of the young ones are getting married and then they're already divorced and they're 22. And I just would see like people start to fall into this rat race, for lack of a better word, or all my friends, all of us with dreams, and we'd always talk about how we're going to take over the world. This, all of a sudden you're like, fuck, like you just settled into this shit job, and now you got like a life you didn't want. And we always said when we were young that we wouldn't do that, we wouldn't like fall into that, especially, coming from the punk scene. It was always about that, And so for me, I decided to live my life the way I did because at a young age, it was a priority. I'm like, this is actually more important to me than money, than stability, than anything. Is this idea that I'm gonna always live an adventurous life, and I won't live a normal life.
Okay. We're gonna hit the fan questions now.
Cool.
This one was interesting. How do you interact with fans? Do you?
Sorry, my balls are sweaty. I'm just. I know what I'm doing. Okay, go on.
So, with fan interaction, what are your limits? Not so much like, hey, a fan walks up, hey, I'm a great guy, sign up. But what is a limit? Like, a fan is going too far, and you're like, hey, buddy, you gotta slow down. That is the initial question they wrote here.
In person, don't kiss me. No, please no. I mean, even if you're cute, like, please just, it's just inappropriate.
Are you also a germaphobe? Does that also play into it?
I just, like, have a little respect. What makes you think you can just come up and fucking plant one on me? It's happened a couple of times. And again, it's like not the worst thing in the world, but like if this was flipped and like it was a guy doing that to his favorite female star, I don't think it would fly.
Mm-hmm. Spinal Tap moment that comes to mind readily. One that just like, shit, that's a great story, I remember, but damn, in the moment that was fucked up.
All right, so I was at a convention, like an adult convention in Vegas, and like a cute, like tattooed college age girl comes up, oh, like, hi, Simone, I'm a big fan, and can I get a picture with you? I'm like, sure, and she's like, it's an adult convention. She's like, can I like, pull my boobs out? I'm like, yeah, like whatever, it's all good. So hi, and she hands the phone to, like, I thought just some dude. Like, can you take the picture? And it's her fucking dad, and I'm like, whoa, like, is this what your kids are out? Your dad, like, what's going on here? And then like, no, she's like, they're big fans too. So like, the daughter, the mom, and the dad all then took like a group picture with me, and like the mom's like giving me a hug. She's like, "Oh, we love you," and I was like, "Wow, I'm really flattered, but like, this is new. I haven't done this before."
Man, at least you handled that with grace, because I'd be sitting there like, huh, okay.
Well, and the dad was huge, so I was like, "Yo, are you gonna kick my ass? Like, what's about to happen here?"
So you got lucky on that one. All right, so this is a game I like to play. I'm gonna rattle off some bands. If you know and like a certain song, you say it, and then we move on to the next one. If you hate the band, or you just don't know them, you kind of just you move it along. All right, so first things first, Skillet.
Oh, that's that Christian like hard rock band, right?
Yeah.
That's really, I think, the only thing I know about them is I think they're like a Christian rock band. So I've never actually heard anything by them.
Black Flag.
Honestly, not my jam. I never was into them.
Okay.
I know it's sacrilege. I was always into more like melodic punk, and I never was into the Minor Threats or the Black Flags too much. I mean, I listened a little bit when I was young, but not enough to even shout out anything.
So what about the adolescents then?
Oh shit, yeah. Well, and my buddy, you want to talk about shout out? Mike Canberra, my good friend, plays drums now in the Adolescents, and yeah, so fucking those guys are awesome. And another band I listened to a lot when I was like in high school, skateboarding and stuff, but I honestly haven't listened to them in years. You're going down an avenue of punk that was not quite mine, but keep going.
Bad Religion.
I think when I first heard 21st Century Digital Boy, I was like in like 8th grade, and first of all I heard it on the radio, which was kind of weird at the time. I was like, whoa, like this song is like anthemic, it's enormous, like the chorus, and they're like a punk band, their T-shirt with like the logo, and I was like, fuck yeah, a kid growing up in church to see that cross X'd out and everything, and the name Bad Religion. I fucking love Bad Religion.
Slayer.
That's my wife's band.
Okay.
I was a punk kid. I never listened to too much metal, and when I did, it was real casual.
Oh my gosh! And you walked to Rain and Blood, bro. I'm sitting here waiting on it.
But that's the obvious. Of course, I know Rain and Blood, and I know some of the hits. But again, I'm not trying to act like the guy when I'm not. When you say a certain one that I really am a fan of, believe me, I'll start talking a lot.
Depeche Mode, then.
Yes. Song, I'm gonna go with Everything in Large Amounts. That's probably in the live version specifically. It's in large amounts, and the live one at the arena when you could hear everyone fucking singing it. When I heard that, I was like, dude, like that's like the goosebump feeling,
James Brown.
Yeah. Again, not any specific song, but a frontman I grew up just watching more actually his performance, listening to his music, just watching the way he would move on stage and all his fucking mic moves and everything.
Tupac.
West Coast legend. When we ride on our enemies.
Eminem.
I think I like angry Eminem. I don't like corny, like jokey Eminem. So I'm gonna go with Toy Soldiers.
Ooh, all right.
I like dark Eminem.
As silly as that album was, that's the big one.
Yeah.
Selena Gomez.
I love everything. Selena can do no wrong, but I'm gonna say, because I covered this Love Will Remember on my last record on Demons.
T Swift.
All you had to do was stay. I love working out to that song.
Family, there's so many more I want to ask, but you have such a wide range of songs. So I always like to ask, this is the most important question. What's the best piece of advice you have ever been given by somebody? Not something you came up with, not something you learned, but somebody said it and you just kind of had a light go off and it's always stuck with you that readily comes to mind.
There's a moment in the Joe Strummer documentary, and it's towards the end, and it's interviewing him, and he talks about you don't want to love something to death, you want to love it to life. So he's like, that's how I approach everything. He's like, this music, this like the songs I write, he's like, there's rage and there's fury here and there's anger, but I'm not like, it's because I want life, not the opposite. So I'd say like love it to life. That's the phrase, man. And Joe Strummer said it, and fuck, I've always thought that was a great phrase.
The only band that matters, The Clash. You know what I love about them? My dad was a radio DJ. He would always leave with, should I stay or should I go? So then I would, just as a homage to him, play Rock Cashbaugh every time I was done my show when I was in college. But I gotta say, man, they really do have some great tunes. Magnificent Seven's a beast of a bass line.
Favorite records always change there. Sometimes it's Sandinista, sometimes it's Give 'Em Enough Rope, and then it'll change, month to month. But I always say too, I got a lot of tattoos, and I only have 2 band tattoos. One is The Clash.
What's the other?
Rocket from the Crypt, a legendary San Diego rock and roll band.
Rock and roll indeed. Good sir, thank you for your time. It was so fun
Yeah.
prepping for this too. Guys, listen, if you want to check out my man Aaron Thompson's work, Empty Streets, Age of Regret, releasing August 6th. You can go to Cleopatra Records. You can go to Twitter and or IG at @thesmallhands_. Good sir, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time.
Guys, as always, you know the motto. You know what I'm going to say, but I got to say it anyway. Be smart, be mindful, and rock on. God bless you guys. I'll see you soon.